It's Ryan Seacrest here. People always say it's good to unwind, but that's easier said than done. The exception, Chumba Casino. They actually make it easier done than said, or at least the same. Chumba Casino is an online social casino with hundreds of casino-style games like slots and blackjack. Play for fun. Play for free for your chance to redeem some serious prizes. Sign up now and collect your free welcome bonus at ChumbaCasino.com. Sponsored by Chumba Casino. No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus terms and conditions apply.
Cinesmack contains spoilers of the spoiling type. If you don't want your spoilers spoiled, please turn back now. Otherwise, enjoy the show!
Gentlemen, let's broaden our minds. Lawrence?
Ladies and gentlemen! Welcome to the main event! This is Cinesmack! And the winner is...
Hello, Cinesmacketeers, and welcome to About 130 of Cinesmack, the podcast about films by filmmakers. I'm your host, Kyle Fine. Joining me tonight is our panel of award-winning judges. First, filmmaker and owner of Arizona Ink Studios, Andrew. I don't get tough with anyone. My lawyer does. Zumwalt.
Rollo to Messi.
Thanks. Second, filmmaker and owner of What Genome Show Productions, Gabriel. Don't start trying to do the right thing, boyo. You haven't had the practice. Roll.
That's fantastic, Kyle. I like it. Keep it up.
Third, filmmaker and owner of Cheshire Moon Films, Tom. She's my sister and my daughter, Haggis.
Tonight I'm going to do as little as possible. Hope nobody gets hurt.
Fourth, writer, actor, and director, Mike. Some men get the world, others get ex-hookers and a trip to Arizona, Keela.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Well, I'm happy to be your guest host for this month, so Mike can take part in the judging. I didn't know what movies we were going to walk in on, but I came back to my office, and my receptionist, Patty, told me I had 2 films waiting in my office for me. So I walked in, and there I saw them. 2 legs that went all the way up and made asses out of themselves. So let's poke the monkey and see what we're watching tonight.
Ladies and gentlemen, cool coppers and dangerous dames, welcome to the main event. Tonight, 2 stories of California corruption come face to face. Which of them will beat the rap, and which one is going to the slammer? In the first quarter, from 1997, written by Brian Helgeland, Curtis Hanson, and James Elroy. Directed by Curtis Hanson. Starring Guy Pearce, Russell Crowe, and Kevin Spacey. L.A. Confidential. In the second quarter, from 1974, written by Robert Towne, directed by Roman Polanski, starring John Huston, Faye Dunaway, and Jack Nicholson. Chinatown!
Well, guys, 2 Los Angeles-based film noirs, 2 critically acclaimed films. So, I think we'll kick things off by talking about the writing.
When I graduated college, my senior thesis was actually a comparative paper between Chinatown and Oedipus Rex, a Greek tragedy by Sophocles. And in a way, it was kind of like the first Cinesmack for me, you know, and I got to compare the 2, and there's a lot of crossover between the 2. And Chinatown really does kind of come across like a Greek tragedy, right up to the very, very bitter end. Um, the thing that I think that we'll probably talk a little bit about tonight is the complexity of the crime stories. Film noir movies sometimes have a tendency to be too clever by half, and I think we saw that with The Big Sleep, where they just tried to layer on the complexities and who was double crossing who and that kind of thing. But I feel one of the things that Chinatown and LA Confidential does really well is they really just cut the complexity of the plot is just the perfect amount for me. I'm sure some people like a little bit more and a little bit less, but it's just all of the web and intrigue and everything is I feel it's kind of the perfect level. The interesting thing about the two is that Chinatown is able to do it with really two main characters and then like an assortment of all of these other side characters, where LA Confidential, all of those sub characters all have a much bigger role in the plot. And so that's something else that we can look at. But then the other thing both of these movies are really well known for is the dialogue. And they, that's one of the characteristics of film noir anyway. It's just kind of the snappy dialogue, and that's why these two deliver, and they're both considered classics today. I think it's pretty safe to say that LA Confidential will go down as a classic, as big if not bigger than Chinatown. Of course, and then we have the other thing is that both of these movies have problematic people that were involved with them, which just because they're in them, but at the same time they are, the issues that they had, Roman Polanski and Kevin Spacey, also are dealt with in the movies that they're involved in, and it makes it really, really hard. And I think I'm looking forward to talking about that. That's not really a script thing, but yeah, I feel like I like the plot of LA Confidential, but I think I like the dialogue in Chinatown because it's delivered at it's a pure form of it. So anyway, that's a start off with that. Anybody else?
Well, I just want to point out that both of these movies won Oscars for their screenplay.
Yes.
I think that says a lot, considering that, film noir, even in 1974, was kind of on its way out, if not out, right? It was more indie films, more love and freedom and things like that. And this just kind of went back into the nitty gritty. And I have to agree with you, Tom, that the dialogue in Chinatown is fantastic. And the setup for LA Confidential, I believe, is its strong point. They weave those stories together quite well. That's all I want to add.
I have a shelf of scripts, and most of them are plays, because I have a theater background, but I have about 10 screenplays, and both of these are in that 10 that it's so much fun just to read the dialogue.
It's really well done.
First of all, Mike, the word you were looking for is there were a lot of snuff films in the 70s. That was the word you were looking for.
Yeah.
I would say that I would also agree with Tom. I felt that the dialogue in Chinatown was, I would say, wittier and much snappier. If those are real words, I don't know, but wittier and snappier. But they just had a more punch to them. They really pushed the story along, and I don't know. I really grasped when they would say something. I was like, oh, that was good. Oh, that was another good. Like, they were just really hot with the way that they wrote the dialogue. And it didn't feel like it was forced. And perhaps that was the time period. And just, people not trying to over copy. And so it seemed more fresh, maybe, is the best way to put that. With LA Confidential, I felt the story was more intricate and more enjoyable to piece together all of the little parts to get to the finale. It was almost like the two movies needed to be merged, and you take the dialogue from Chinatown and put it in LA Confidential, and you'd have a perfect movie.
Yeah, I think the dialogue in Chinatown was more sparse and more kind of purposeful. There was only dialogue when there needed to be dialogue, and it was meaningful dialogue. It added to what was going on and didn't try to like explain what was going on or anything. It kind of added to the nuance of the scene or the moment or the story. And another movie I think of when I think of that is No Country for Old Men, because the dialogue is very sparse in that movie, but the dialogue you get is so purposeful and so meaningful that it's like it's just right. The right amount of dialogue and the other thing I thought that was really interesting about Chinatown and its dialogue is that what it told you about the characters. The dialogue not only kind of like took you through the story a little bit, but it also told you a lot about the characters and what their motivations were and that kind of thing, what they were hiding, like what they weren't saying sometimes was as important as what they were, because it was about what their goals were and what they were hiding and that kind of stuff. And it was just the dialogue is just spot on in that. I felt at times in LA Confidential, the dialogue was a little bit kind of like telling you what to think and what was going on. It was kind of explanatory dialogue, which not all the time, but there were times when I'm like, well, we probably didn't need him to say that. I mean, we know that. We can see that, or we can deduce that from what's going on. We didn't need them to say that. But one of the things I really did like about LA Confidential and the writing was the character development. And I really thought that each of these characters was really, they were maybe a little too, at times kind of, I can't think, monolithic in that their motivations were always, were very predictable in some ways, but each of the characters was very distinct and they had their own motivations. And I thought they were well-developed characters and made it interesting to watching those characters interacting with each other in particular. And, the character development in Chinatown is great too, but I really, that was the part of the writing that I really appreciated the most in LA Confidential. So,
well, and that's one of the things too is that makes Chinatown kind of that Greek tragedy is the lack of growth in the characters. I'm not really sure Jake, I don't think Giddey's grows that much at the end, because he's still making the same mistakes over and over again, whereas Bud and Exley have actually, you've actually seen them mature and grow a little bit when they come out, the fact that they're not trying to kill each other as they're driving away.
Well, and even with Jack too, Jack actually starts doing real police work.
Yeah. There's that great line, why did you become a cop? And he said, I don't remember.
Yes. Oh, it's so
good.
And
you see a switch flip.
Yep. So good.
Yeah. But hands down, these are two of some of the best screenplays ever, though. They're really great.
I do want to actually bring up okay, so this is the first time I've watched Chinatown. I've seen LA Confidential multiple times. And maybe this is not a big surprise, but I mean, I know we do spoilers on the show, so I'm giving out my spoiler warning to all the listeners.
They get a warning at the beginning of the show.
I know, but I'm just throwing it out again. Mute this section. I'm sorry, but the fact that Chinatown's big, huge plot twist was the fact that it was her daughter and her sister, I was like, holy buckets. A movie made in the 70s with this type of twist storyline. Wow. I mean, that's ballsy. I can't even imagine somebody trying something like that today. That was... I can't think of another movie that has had that quite big of a twist to it. So I was pretty surprised at that one.
It is interesting, though, how your view of Noah Cross changes that comes out, and you're just like, wow, this guy is repugnant. I mean, he is.
Yes.
And that whole scene where he's like, "Come here, sweetie, come." He's trying to get to his granddaughter. I'm just like,
What?
don't
And then,
fucking touch him.
Oh, it makes you squirm.
oh
that's
yeah,
the
because then he's like, "I'm going to be the greatest grandfather ever, and you're my granddaughter," and it's just like, you're wrong. There are so many things wrong with you.
Yes. It makes you squirm in your seat while you watch it. And
then he takes her at the end,
Yes.
and it's just like, what?
Yeah.
Oh,
So the one of the things that a problem I don't have. I think I have two issues with all of LA Confidential. How do you feel that Bud White survives at the end?
Yeah. I had seen it before, but I did not recall that he had survived. And when they show the scene where he gets shot, and especially the point where he gets shot through the face, I thought, well, that's he's done, and it's tragic in a certain sense. But and then they show him at the end, and I'm like, well, that's a kind of that's a Hollywood happy ending, because and he gets a girl, he lives through that, and he gets the girl, and they drive off into the the happy horizon to live happily ever after. And I didn't know how I felt about it. But then again, I was kind of surprised at at how much of a downer the ending of Chinatown is, and how it makes sense. It makes sense. It's like the only ending it can have, really.
Yes.
But I'm surprised that it was as popular as it was with that kind of an ending, because I feel like that's not a Hollywood ending. That's not the kind of thing that most moviegoers are accustomed to or like that much. People like the happy ending.
I just want to hop in real quick. I've got some trivia about the endings of these films, but I heard it said once that the best endings to films are both surprising and inevitable. And that is the way Chinatown's ending feels. Mm-hmm. It surprises you in what happens, but it feels inevitable. Like it feels correct for the story that's how it ended.
I would agree with that.
It's funny that Andrew said that you couldn't do that plot twist in Chinatown, and the subject matter is disturbing enough as it is that you'd never get away with it, but you'd never get away with it with social media either. By the time Thursday night previews are over, everybody would be talking about it, and the people that were like morally disturbed by it would be all over social media, ruining it for everybody. And so there's multiple reasons why it wouldn't work now.
Well, yeah, and it just seemed like such a huge, especially for the time period. But I name another movie where that's the plot twist that you're just like, wait, what?
Yeah.
There are films like Old Boy that have similar types of things going on in them, but they're few and far between. It's not a subject that comes up a lot in movies.
Agreed. I want to comment real quick on Tom, your question. I've always felt his survival is weird, and almost like it was forced so that way he could have one more scene or something. Like it's always felt very odd to me, even watching it as multiple times and then watching it again. That scene has just always been so weird to me that he's there. I don't know.
It's been a long time since I've watched LA Confidential. Like I still have my DVD, which is the cardboard case.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Sure.
And I was remembering, I thought that Ed shoots Bud in the cabin. Like for some reason, when it was going down, I'm like, oh yeah, this is when he shoots him. And I was totally wrong. And I don't know why I was misremembering it, but I totally misremembered it. And then I see him shoot, James Cromwell. And it's like, oh, maybe I was just, I was flipping those two around. But I could have sworn if you would have asked me before I watched it again, I would have said, yeah, Ed shoots Bud in the cabin. I don't know where that came from. No idea. whatsoever.
I don't know.
It's like
All
that.
right. I was just going to say we're officially out of time on this round. If you have any closing thoughts, throw them in now.
Now I'll save my stuff for overall.
Forever hold your peace.
They were
All right.
they were good.
It's time to put it to a vote. Let's start with Tom.
I'll say Chinatown.
Gabe.
Yeah, Chinatown for me as well.
Andrew.
I'm going to jump on the train with Chinatown, I guess, because the snappy dialogue that we discussed earlier.
Okay,
I don't
Mike?
know why I'm qualifying my answer, by the way.
You don't have to justify yourself.
Well,
There's no
once
grand
again,
jury here.
we are in cinema agree, at least for writing, and I'm going to go with Chinatown as well.
All right. Make it 4 for Chinatown. Someone mentioned during this round that there are a lot of parts in LA Confidential. The trivia says the film has 80 speaking parts, which is insane for a film. Heather and I watched this together, and we decided it is the opposite Dunkirk, where people constantly talk as opposed to no one ever talking.
Yes.
Screenwriter Robert Towne was originally offered $125,000 to write a screenplay adaptation of The Great Gatsby, but Towne felt he couldn't do any better than F. Scott Fitzgerald and accepted $25,000 instead to write his own story, Chinatown. I'd say that paid off.
I'd say that definitely paid off.
LA Confidential director Curtis Hanson and screenwriter Brian Helgeland worked on the script together for 2 years. And that time, Hanson turned down several directing gigs, and Helgeland cranked out 7 drafts for free.
Holy crap. 7 drafts?
That's a lot of writing.
That is a lot of writing.
That is a lot of writing.
That's a lot of yellow
And it was
pages.
he probably felt like a connection to the material and had to do it in an old timey typewriter.
Oh, God. Yeah, for sure.
Yep.
Very hush.
Button pack.
Like Danny DeVito's typewriter.
Exactly.
No one mentioned Danny DeVito in the acting. No, we're getting into acting now. What am I saying? Sorry, I'm jumping the gun. I just tipped. I'm no longer hush hush. So let's get into the acting.
I think we're going to start with LA Confidential just because of the barrage of actors that are in this movie. And it's really fascinating to me. We mentioned Kevin Spacey, and I'm sure other people potentially may have thoughts that, it's interesting now going back and watching some of these things that I haven't seen in a long time and seeing some of these actors and how they perform and what I know of them now versus what they were doing then type thing. I don't remember Simon Baker being in this movie at all. And then he showed up. I was like, oh my God, that's freaking Simon Baker. And it's so it was one of those things that was kind of nice to have those memories flood back of all these actors. But talk about a cast. I mean, Kevin Spacey, Russell Crowe, Guy Pearce, James Cromwell, Kim Basinger, Danny DeVito. I mean, you can read the first probably 20 names and everyone's like, oh, yeah, okay, yeah, sure. I love Guy Pearce. He is, I think, fantastic in the roles that he picks or that are picked for him. He has this weird majesticness about him when he does his roles. And I've always found him fascinating. He has a look, he has a style, and there is just something about him. And I have to say that I don't know if I could. We always talk about alternate universes. It's one of those things where I think about who could you have chiseled into his role, and I don't know if there's somebody that could have pulled off his weird, clean-cut, almost Boy Scout on the edge type role that he does so well. So I found him quite enjoyable to watch. I know people have qualms about Kevin Spacey, but I'm sorry, he is a sensational actor. I've always thought Kevin Spacey is really good. I know he has done some potentially, allegedly done some terrible things in the world, and people have other mindsets of him, but he is a very good actor and he delivers. His role is probably not the strongest for a Kevin Spacey role that I've seen him in other stuff, but again, does a nice job. James Cromwell. So did anybody else have a problem with the fact that he slips in and out of his Irish accent? Did that bother anybody? Because it really drove me nuts. Okay.
No, because I think actually if you go back and watch it again, when he's being deceiving, I think there's actually a better purpose to it.
Sure, it just seemed like was he trying to speak more English on purpose as a character, or was he just not good at keeping the accent?
No, I think that every time that he slipped in and out of it, there's actually more of a purpose to it, that he's being deceitful. And
you're looking at it as there is actually the character purpose of when it's the Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. He's being bad. He speaks more Irish.
I would say, but subconscious, and I would say subconsciously. I don't think it's a subconscious choice, but when he kind of goes back to his roots,
sure,
that voice starts to come through again. So, okay. And if that's the case, look, next time I watch it, I'm going to watch closely. And if that's the case, then the Oscar went to the wrong person that year, because that would be stunning.
Yeah, I mean it's a different. I would have never have thought of that, and I could go with that theory.
I'm naive. I give him the benefit of the doubt.
No, sure. And then a very young Russell Crowe. Kim Basinger, and then of course Danny DeVito, who's always playing the sniveling, wising little background guy that always gets the nut. And I mean your cast is just woo. So I want to let other people talk, but Chinatown. I mean Jack Nicholson, holy buckets, leads the show in that movie. He just takes it by the reins and just humps it into submission. And just walks away with so many of the scenes. I would say probably John Huston is probably the closest to going toe-to-toe with him when they have their little one-on-ones. Because, I mean, their scenes are just so glamorous almost, because it's just they work off of each other. They're playing each other really well, and it just has a really good beat and feel to it. So I really, really enjoyed both of them in this. I'll be quiet. I probably talked a little bit longer than I should, but throw out some stuff. Go.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure that you could put together a better cast than LA Confidential, and it seems like you should be able to just sit down with your friends and be like, all right, let's recast LA Confidential. I don't know that you could. I mean,
not in 97.
Not in 97, no. And Guy Pearce, how weird that he played that role so well, but it wound up actually kind of being against type for him, that he really kind of started playing more bad guys after this. So I thought that was kind of interesting. But yeah, as far as casting goes, it's star-studded, and there isn't that one character where you're like, oh, I can't wait for them to get back on screen, because everybody just freaking delivers in this one. It's great.
Well, and I think it says a lot about Chinatown that, you have this ensemble cast in LA Confidential and Chinatown is mainly these three characters, right? And these three characters, the performances from each actor as those characters is what really draws you in. Sure, they have great dialogue, but my God, Jack being Jack, and he's just fantastic in this part. Faye Dunaway being very distant in a lot of the scenes, right? Because she's the femme fatale, she's supposed to be distant, but she has like this charisma that just keeps drawing you back to her. And John Huston, freaking phenomenal. Like, gives you the creepy vibe from the second he shows up on screen. And you're like, okay, there's something wrong with this guy. And we'll go back to, the whole ending when he's like, you're my granddaughter. you're supposed to be with me. And it's like, oh my God, like he was playing just this fucking creep perfectly. LA Confidential, once again, James Cromwell, every time you see him in a movie, you're like, oh, he's probably going to be a bad guy. He is so good at being the bad guy. Like he just is really good at it. Just, I love seeing him as the antagonist. And, David Stratham, I've always really liked. Matt McCoy, who plays the TV detective on the show. Fun fact, I actually rode on a plane with him. And I kept looking over at him, and finally he looked at me and he just kind of nodded. And I'm like, okay, you and I both know who you are. It was great. I totally forgot that Paul Guilfoyle played Mickey Cohen. And he plays, was it Brass on CSI? Right? And
I was just gonna say he will always be Brass to me.
Yeah,
I know. And he comes in with a shotgun and he's all like ready to kill everybody, and I'm like, whoa, whoa.
But I want to give the person that blew me away that he was in this movie, and he's been in a ton of movies, especially 80s action movies. It's James Hong. He was Evelyn's butler.
Yes.
Like the second I saw him when he opened that door, I'm like, that's James Hong. And it was great. Like it's a very small part. I understand that, but it was great to see James Hong. But
naturally, I think of him from Blade Runner.
Yes. Yep. Blade Runner, another great film noir.
Big Trouble in Little China.
Big Trouble in Little China is the one I was thinking.
But I also forgot to mention Diane Ladd as, the original, the fake Evelyn Mulroy that gets him on the case and then is later found dead. But holy crap. Like, I've talked way too much. I think both casts are fantastic. I just think Chinatown does more with less.
I would say that Faye Dunaway is the type of actress that film noirs are written for. That's how I mean, she just is, as Kyle said, the two long legs that came up and met an ass at the beginning. That I mean, she is just that part perfectly.
But let's not forget how great Kim Basinger was also. And I didn't even mention, she has a range in that is brilliant. And once again, she has legs that go all the way up and make an ass out of herself. Like, she is absolutely gorgeous in the movie, but I don't think that should detract from her acting. Right.
And
like,
she's
great.
She's hardcore. She flips from the sexual icon to the serious, like, don't get in my face kind of attitude. And she has that range very well done.
Yeah, so Kim Basinger, this is her only nomination and win for Best Supporting Actress at the Academy Awards for LA Confidential. So yeah, we got 2 minutes left. I guess I'll butt in here and fill a little time.
Or Gabe.
Gabe. Sorry, Gabe.
It's okay.
Doing?
I've just been listening. Let
No,
people
go
have
for
their
it.
say.
Go for it.
No, you really can't go. You can't say much wrong about the cast for either of these movies. I mean, the hard part for me is going to be like, how do you judge? How do you judge the acting category? Do you go from the quality of the performances from a small cast, or the awesome number of people in the cast who also have great performances? How do you I don't know how to judge this category because there's a lot of great performances on both sides. And yeah, I don't know. I guess I don't have a lot to add to what everybody else said. But yeah, this is going to be tough. You know what? I have a feeling this episode is going to be one of those ones where it may come out to be a little bit lopsided from the score, but I think it's not going to represent how good both of these movies are, and how, it's just that we're forced to make a decision. And so we have to make a decision, and then but both of these, the casts are really stellar, and the performances are all overall very good. I can't think of any performances that stood out to me that I didn't like.
And answer your question, for me, it's which of the performances like keep me in the movie, that I don't feel, that I don't suddenly pull myself out and I'm wondering like what it was like on the set, or I could picture them, saying the line multiple times over multiple takes, that they have that illusion of the first time they've ever said these lines. And I talked about them. LA Confidential does it, I think, way better than Chinatown does. Now, that's just my criteria for this category. For this episode, it changes episode to episode, but I think that it is everybody from LA Confidential. And the thing about LA Confidential is all of them play their parts. Kevin Spacey and David Strathairn specifically, they play their parts, but they keep it low key, and they don't, they could have gone in there and shoot scenery, but that wasn't their job. They had other characters that were supposed to do that. And I think everybody does such a wonderful job of just respecting all the other characters in the piece, which is, says a lot for the talent they were dealing with.
It was a good troupe, what you would normally call, on stage, a troupe of actual actors getting together who played off of each other well without trying to upstage A or B. They meshed really well, I felt.
Yeah.
And
right.
Your comment of Guy Pearce.
We are way over time. But go nuts, Andrew, if you want to.
No, mine was just about Guy Pearce, so we'll move on.
Yeah, this is, we mentioned earlier, could you think of a better cast in 97? But remember, at this time, Guy Pearce is a relative unknown, so is Russell Crowe. This was the beginning, towards the beginning of their Hollywood careers. So now looking back, how lucky they got with their casting of this movie and how strong the ensemble was. And then, so now it's time. Sorry, I'm new to this hosting thing. I don't do it very often. Let's go ahead and take a vote for acting. This time we'll start with Mike.
Oh, boy. All right. I did say that I feel like Chinatown does more with less, with just 3 actors. But holy buckets. I'm going to give it to LA Confidential on this one.
Okay. Gabe.
Yeah, like I said, it's going to be challenging. I don't know. I think I'm going to go with LA Confidential as well because of the vast number of great performances from a stellar cast.
All right. Andrew.
I'm going to go with the troupe, so I'm going to do LA Confidential.
Okay, Tom.
And I'm going with LA Confidential because any one of those actors could have phoned it in and they would have stuck out like a sore thumb, and they didn't. It was seamless.
Wow. All right, a clean sweep the other way. All right, a little bit of trivia.
It's dead even. It's a dead
even. Dead heat.
Isn't that another film noir?
Sounds like one if it's not.
Yeah.
Or a John Cusack movie you can find in a red box somewhere.
Right.
LA Confidential. The cop that congratulates Exley at the end is disgraced Los Angeles Police Chief Daryl Gates in an uncredited role. He was the chief of police when the Rodney King beating took place.
Oh, you ruined that movie for me. Thanks, dude.
Wow.
Yeah, you got it.
Yeah, well, you mentioned it earlier, and we'll get into it overall, I'm sure. There is some controversy on both sides with directors and actors and stuff. Yeah, which it's really weird to watch, to revisit these things later, and because your opinion of it completely changes. But we'll get into that later.
I try to look at it through the lens of the time and not now what I know, because I never would have known then. All right. After several takes that never looked quite right, Faye Dunaway got annoyed and told Jack Nicholson to actually slap her. He did and felt very guilty for it, despite it being Dunaway's decision. The shot made it into the movie.
It looked pretty convincing.
Wow.
It did. These movies also feature women beating.
Yeah.
I didn't.
Yes. Yeah, I don't know. I don't
that
know if
slap array at the end. Oof. Sister, daughter, sister, daughter.
yeah, that makes you uncomfortable too.
It was intense. I was like, "Wow, bring it in." Jeez.
Okay, I just want to do a quick little added-on bonus. Can you guess
Ads.
closest without going over? How many acting credits does James Hong have?
Oh boy.
121.
121.
215.
215.
170.
170. Mike?
I'm going to go higher than these guys. I'm going to say 307.
Mike, you are closest, but still off by about 141. He has 448 acting credits.
What?
Oh my God.
What? Hold on here.
Wow.
So
really?
when you say things like, haven't I seen that guy in something? James Hong is the answer statistically
my
more
God.
often than almost anyone else.
Oh my God.
The dude works.
He
Holy
works.
shit.
Yes, he does.
He was in everything.
Yes.
Yeah, and
He was born
you wonder
in
though, a lot of his
1929.
parts were like small parts. It's like he just comes in maybe
Yes.
for a day or two.
So the answer is no longer Samuel L. Jackson is in every movie. It's
James Hong.
James Hong has been in an incredible amount of movies and shows, including The Man from U.N.C.L.E., I Dream of Jeannie, Airplane, Have Gun, Will Travel, the new Kung Fu Panda movies, Days of Our Lives, Taxi, Diagnosis Murder, McHale's Navy.
Holy crap. Yeah.
You
West
name
Wing.
it. He did voiceovers for video games. He has been in Drunk History. He has lent his voice to the Mike Tyson Mysteries on Adult Swim. The dude works.
Oh, and he was in
Holy
Magnum
crap.
Yeah.
along with.
Hey, there's another Magnum PI connection.
Exactly. There was.
All right.
he did
It
one of the
is.
voices in
John
Star Wars
Hillerman.
Visions. Holy shitballs.
For sure. All right, let's move on to directing.
He was in
Start-
Sharknado? Sorry.
That I do not
Statistically,
know.
Andrew, there are less movies you can name that don't feature James Hong than there are that do.
That would be a fun game. Was James Hong in this?
Name a movie he's not in. Go.
Holy,
It
that would actually
should
be
be-
pretty difficult.
Wouldn't it be the 7 degrees of separation from James Hong instead of Kevin Bacon?
Yeah,
'Cause it
I don't know
sounds
why
like-
Kevin Bacon gets this. James Hong would be way faster.
All right, so I guess we're moving on to directing. I think that was my category, right?
Yes, that's you, Gabe.
All right. Well, there's some pretty good directing going on here too. I don't, one of the things that I noticed about Chinatown, one of the things that I liked was the cinematography, and there were certain scenes where I was like, this is just a beautiful shot. There was a scene where he's kind of sneaking into kind of like, I don't know what you would call it, like a reservoir or whatever. He climbs over the fence. It's a scene where he eventually gets his nose cut. And when he's first sneaking in, they do it at like dusk. And it's just really beautifully done because the sky behind the mountains in the background is just beautiful. But then you can kind of tell that there are lights there, but they're so strategically placed. And they seem like they could be part of the scene, like it's a lamp post or something there. And they're just in the right places, and the lighting is just so well done, and it's low light. And I've always been like, how did they get those kinds of shots? How did they do that? And then think about it. I'm sure they were shooting on film at the time, and it's like, you got to get it right. You don't get a lot of extra chances with it, and I just thought it was beautiful, and that kind of cinematography is throughout Chinatown, and it's just beautifully done. And I can't complain about the cinematography in L.A. Confidential either. There's a lot of beautiful work in that film too, but it really stood out in Chinatown to me. And I think one of the other things I think that might make or break this category for me anyway is pacing. I think Chinatown is it's got a slow pace, but I think the pacing is just right. It builds tension. The editing is just right. And I felt like maybe L.A. Confidential at times was a little bit over long. The difference is, in L.A. Confidential, there are a lot more action scenes. There's a lot more, gunfights, and it's a little more action oriented, which kind of breaks it up. But I did feel at times like they could have probably tightened this film up a little bit, taken a little off, and it would have been just as good, if not better. So for me, I think maybe in part the pacing might have an impact on my decision here. But I don't know. What do you guys think?
Well, I will agree with a lot of the shots actually at the quarry were very well done and very majestic, I guess is a good word for them. I would say that what stuck out to me was the shots at the orange grove were very well done. And I know it was day and all that. It wasn't quite the low light that beauty that you described, but there was just this illustriousness in the wide shots and him driving down the lane with the oranges. I mean, like it was well thought out.
Actually, in the car with him while he's driving.
Yeah, like
I was like, whoa, that's pretty cool. I mean, yeah. that was a well done, scene. Yeah.
I was again, with this being the first time I had seen Chinatown, the shot at the end when he actually shoots her in the head and they actually like show her eye blown out while she's like coming out of the car. I was like, whoa, holy buckets. That was more graphic than I expected for a 1970s movie. And then, on the flip side, I'll say that L.A. Confidential definitely has that 80s gunfight that we all know with the 80s gun shooting and sound effects and the shootouts that are just, I don't know. I think we look at them as almost corny nowadays. Lots of squibs and things like that. In fact, I noticed that when Kevin Spacey is shot at the end, I noticed the squib comes out, and so his shirt is broken out instead of, in like a bullet would actually do, silly stuff like that. But I would have to agree that there's a lot of the slow pacing of the story gets broken up with a lot of action, and it feels sprinkled in. And I would say it strategically, because there's even these moments when Guy Pearce is interrogating the three men for the diner murders, and he goes from one room to the next room to the next room, and it's like bam, bam. I mean, there's like these fast beats, but it starts off super slow, real low key, and then it slowly gets a little bit more intense. And then he goes to the second room, and then he comes back to the first room, and then it starts speeding up, and then he goes to the second room, and then the third room, and then back to the second room, and then the guy, I'm trying to think. He actually comes in and he puts the gun in his mouth, and that, I mean, like, it escalates so quickly, but it starts off very slow, and that pacing to me was so well done, and had this intensity that was driven purely by the characters and the shots that were happening, and they switched between them very well. And that really, I love that scene. I love that scene. So that would be one of those that I'd pull out for LA.
Yeah, good editing.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
I would go like cinematography for Chinatown. but pretty good editing in L.A. Confidential, because they did have those scenes. They had the action scenes, and they had those tense scenes where the pacing was fast and furious, and yeah, I don't know.
That's one of the things that that L.A. Confidential does really, really well. Chinatown. You kind of get the story as Geddes does. We only know as much as he does. Yeah. Whereas L.A. Confidential, they could have done it a million different ways. But because of the way all the pieces,
they did it at least 7 different ways.
Yeah, and so I think Curtis Hanson did a really great job of giving you information only when you needed to know it, and just basically, I mean, he was like a conductor, and just he just dragged you along with him and told the story in the way he wanted to, and it was so really well done. And one of the things I love about Chinatown is the foreshadowing. So I mean, if this was your first time seeing it, you probably didn't notice these things, but there's a part where she's talking about the defect in her iris, in her left eye, and then the smashed tail light, and they're just foreshadowing that she's going to lose an eye at the end of this thing. When they're driving away from the retirement home, and the guys come out and they shoot out her window, and they're driving away, she kind of reaches up and she just kind of does a little flick of glass from the corner of her eye, because they were shot at from behind in the same convertible in the same spot, but she does this little kind of wipe just underneath her eyelid, and it's just kind of like, oh, it gets so much worse for you. and I love that, because it's subtle and you don't really notice it, but when you go back and you watch it again, you're like, oh shit, he telegraphed this. It's all of the clues are there, and that's another. I'm sorry, I keep going back to this, but it's another thing about Greek tragedy is these omens and these things that are kind of forecasting the doom that is to come. And Roman Polanski, asshole that he is, does it really, really well. So,
yeah, I missed the eye, her wiping the eye, but the tail light and stuff, and her iris. So I watched this twice now, because I always watch these a couple of times, especially for ones I haven't seen before. So.
You're showing off.
No.
I'm usually finishing watching them as we start the show.
I actually, personally, I want to know who came up with the idea of the stopwatch, because that's actually brilliant.
Totally brilliant, yeah.
Yeah. And 2 of them. And
yeah.
I mean, how many times did that happen? Where you're like, well, it was just sitting on the road, it wasn't smashed. It's like, oh, he must have rolled forward. He's like, I need 2 for every car that we're gonna watch.
Well, he had the glove box. He opened it up. There's a bunch of stopwatches in there.
It's great.
Guy's got a line on some cheap stopwatches.
Yeah.
So I'll throw you a little bonus trivia real quick. There originally was, at some point, Jake Geddes had narration in Chinatown, and it was removed at Roman Polanski's request so that people discovered what Jake Geddes did as he does.
That is a great choice.
Yeah, that was a great choice.
I like that.
Again, it reminds me of Blade Runner, and the whole voiceover.
Oh my god! All right, I owe somebody $10. Gabe mentioned Blade Runner
again. This is the second time.
You're gonna
Won't
go
be the last time.
You owe him 20. I just wanted to say real quick. I thought Andrew kind of talked about the shootout at the gunfights. I really enjoyed the final shootout in the cabin.
Yeah.
I thought it was great. Like, they used it 3-dimensionally instead of, the normal 2-dimensional when Bud goes under the floor. And I mean, honestly, it was close. Like I said before, I had misremembered things. So for me, it was almost like I was watching it again, even though I've watched it, at least 10 times. I'd just forgotten so much about it. But I was listening to the chaos that is ensuing in my living room. Did anyone mention the car scene with them driving away from the orchard field in Chinatown. When they're just driving along, we were talking about cinematography. I don't know why, but I loved that shot of those two just driving in the car, and everything was just perfect. I felt
it's those. He really mastered those golden hour shots.
Yes.
Oh yes.
I mean, they really knew how much time they had, and they I mean, maybe they tried it 20 times and pissed off the producers, but they did such a great job knowing when that sun was going to go. And it's LA. It's not like you're going to get, an overcast day or anything. But
right.
pre-smog LA. So
right. Well, and I would say, Mike, your point of the shootout in the cabin is very three-dimensional. It wasn't them just shooting out the front of the windows in the front of the house. Like, they had guys walking around the house. They had guys coming in from the side door. They were behind cars. They weren't behind cars. Like, there was so much movement and things changing throughout that entire thing that made that tension and that excitement, because there was a lot going on, but yet it was still comprehensive. Like, he didn't break that line of 180 where you're just like, I have no idea where I am anymore. Like a lot of fight movies and quick edits and stuff, you knew where you were, and you knew that there was danger all around you, and it was that, again, I think that adds to potentially some in editing, but just the way that he built that intensity slowly, and then once again he gets over the top and just boom, and then all of a sudden slams the brakes, and James Cromwell walks in.
Yeah.
And you all know it's going to happen. But it's just that he walks in and it's just like, yeah, baby, here I am.
Yep. Yeah. No, it's the sound editing in that as well. Yep. Hearing things off camera, and you're like, oh, they're coming up this way, they're coming up that way.
Yes.
Who's going to get it first? It's just really well done, I thought. Yeah, those are the only things I want to add. I can't add any more from what everyone else said.
All right. So if nobody has anything extra to say, we'll go ahead and put this to a vote. Let's start with Gabe.
Oh boy. Yeah, I think it's controversial. But I'm going to go with Chinatown.
Okay, Mike.
It's not controversial, Gabe. Chinatown.
Well, it's controversial because of who the director is, not because of the directing.
Yeah, he's a prick and is awful, but it's still a good movie.
Yes.
Directing wise.
Tom. Don't talk about Tom that way. I'm going to ask him for his vote. Tom.
No, I'm a prick. It's cool. I think, boy, I had written down that I was going to do Chinatown, and then I kind of talked myself out of it when we're talking about the pacing, and I'm going to go with Chinatown.
Oh, so you talked yourself back into it.
Yeah, I stick with my gut. I spent 2 days going over this and thinking about it, and just go with what I thought about. So,
well, word to the wise, I stick with my gut, and I'm the heaviest I've ever been. Andrew.
I'm gonna, I guess, be the odd man out, so I'm going with LA Confidential.
And the tie is broken.
I'm sorry, everyone.
That's okay. For LA Confidential, Curtis Hanson did not want the film to be overly nostalgic, so he had cinematographer Dante Spinati shoot it like a contemporary film and use more naturalistic lighting than in a classic film noir. He told Spinati that the film's production designer, Janine Opawal, to pay great attention to period detail, but to then put it all in the background.
I think that paid off for him.
Yeah, so do I.
Yeah, it looks like it's set in old LA without slapping you in the face that it's set in old LA.
Old LA, I would agree with that.
For Chinatown, Roman Polanski liked the idea of doing a cameo in the film as the hood who slits Jack Nicholson's nose, but he was less than thrilled about having to cut his long hair for his brief appearance in the film. Reportedly, he put it off as long as possible, getting a haircut right before the shot took place.
Hair and makeup.
I have to say that effect, as simple as it is still one of the most effective that I've ever seen. Because I knew it was coming, and I don't know how they did it, but it sure as hell looked like they really cut his nose. I've always thought that effect was really quite well done.
So I can tell you a little bit about it if you'd like. Apparently, it is a specialized knife that is completely safe when handled in the right way, but could have been dangerous if Roman Polanski screwed around with it. They have tried to explain it so many times that the two of them have just started lying and saying he really cut Jack Nicholson's nose.
It seriously is like it seems so simplistic in such a small detail, but it was really convincing.
Yeah, it's really well done. I agree.
It reminds me of an off-topic but similar story. If you guys are like me and like heavy metal, I don't think most of you do, but there is an album by Pantera called Vulgar Display of Power, and the front is a picture of what looks like a man getting punched in the face really hard. And the lore around it was that he won a contest and got punched 35 times in the face to get the perfect picture.
Oh, my God.
Turns out later that was all bullshit, and it's just posed that way to make him look like that.
Yeah.
But everyone in the band, with the exception of the photographer, keeps lying about it, and the number of how many times he got punched goes up every time they get asked.
Does that have Walk on it? Is that?
Yes, that is the album with Walk on it.
Yes.
Yeah. The album art really looks like a dude getting punched in the face by the lead singer, but apparently that is not a real punch.
Well, I'll tell you.
Which I thought that was the urban legend when I was, a young lad. But I didn't find out until just a few years ago watching a documentary that was all bullshit.
Well, having Jack Nicholson be like, I would say probably at least 70% of the movie with a huge gauze pad and tape over his nose is pretty.
Yeah, for I guess what you would call a non-serious injury, it's very effective and gruesome.
Yeah.
I feel like it would hurt really bad and is incredibly ugly to look at.
Well, and I mean, they did a nice job with the stitches and everything else later in some of the shots, like when he's laying in bed, you can see the stitches and like they did a good job.
Both these movies feature some nasal trauma, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, let's get to overall.
Oh boy. Okay. What can I say that we haven't already said? I have three things that I've been thinking about. Number one is the music. I always try to pay attention to the film score or the music used in the movies. I have to say that although I did enjoy Chinatown's score, I really enjoyed LA Confidential's. Like it just, for me, I think hits harder, and it probably could be because Chinatown is, as we mentioned before, slower paced. So you don't necessarily need to have big dramatic swells or big hits where where LA Confidential, you get to use fast beats, bigger hits, especially during the action scenes. But I really did enjoy both. I would have to say LA Confidential for me wins out. Number two, one thing that, especially us as no budget and low budget filmmakers, doing a period drama, the farther away you get from that period is very difficult. Now, granted, these are both studio films, so they do have a budget for that, but even trying to find a wide shot that doesn't show the current technology or gives away the fact that it wasn't shot for the period that you intended is very difficult. Now, granted, Chinatown probably had an easier time doing that since it takes place closer to the time period. Well, actually, no, it doesn't. If it's supposed to happen in the 30s, it's shot in 74. 97 to
40.
the 50. Yeah, they're both 40. So I take that back.
But
just
the sprawl of technology was much greater in the 90s than it was in the 70s.
That is correct. Yeah, that's correct. I think both of them did a really good job at showing you the the backgrounds, the set design of what it would feel like to be back then. And I think LA Confidential does a great job of that, especially when Spacey does his first, little drug bust with that premiere happening in the background. It just looks so great. Looks so good. And you have to remember, too, that probably not a lot of the houses changed that much. It's all kind of a stucco look. The only thing it kind of felt out of place was Jason Strathern's house in LA Confidential. But my guess is it's more of a modern look, but it was probably, back then, probably a brand new house. Right,
like a Frank Lloyd Wright house.
Correct. Yeah.
Did they have garage door openers then?
I want to say they did. Yeah. I thought they were like screw type garage door openers.
Because when that was one thing that kind of made me think is when he opened the garage doors, and I was like, I guess I don't know how long they've been around. I don't know anything about it.
Yeah, and I just. I'm always amazed at when they get those wide shots and it looks period accurate, or at least really close to it. I, for one, watching both films, did not see anything that would stick out in my mind. Now, of course, if you did it today, you'd have to watch out for cell phone towers and everything else. But just wanted to say that production design, finding the clothing, the cars, even when it comes down to papers and things like that, really did a fantastic job at that. So then finally, it comes down to rewatchability. And for me, even though I forgot, forgot the ending, I would have to say, for me, I could watch LA Confidential multiple times. Where Chinatown, now that I know the ending, I would want to sit down and just watch it as a way to learn new shots and new ideas for making a film. And I would want to recommend this to people that haven't seen it and be like, oh my, you've got to watch Chinatown. Like, it is up there on the list for movies that you should see, as far as for acting, the writing, and the directing of it. So, yeah, it always comes down to that for me and overall. So it's going to be a tough choice, but I'm probably going to have to lean towards LA Confidential. Anyway, guys, go ahead.
Well, and
Mike votes before the voting is called for.
Is that a thing that we need to add? People voting before the round is over.
I'm just saying, I'm leaning towards it.
You can take the host out of Mike, but you can't take Mike out of the host.
Apparently, yes.
I'm not sure I said that right.
My only follow up really, Mike, is we talked about the transformation that studios do. Even not just in these two movies, but in general, there's a lot of movies that I'm really impressed at getting, even street signs or Coke bottles or ice machines or whatever in the area and being able to pull that off, because, and you look at what we do today, a lot of that would be green screened out. Your backgrounds would be, you would have props up front, and then everything else behind it would be blued out, and then they would add it in post. So it's, and we all realize they didn't have as much of the technology that we have today, and it wasn't even remotely as good. You see that stuff, and that takes a lot of work. There's very talented people to pull that kind of stuff off, and that shows in both of these movies, as you said. Yeah, I mean, rewatchability is probably a good kind of rate when it comes to overall, and I think that we've all leaned towards that and mentioned that before. I've seen Chinatown now twice, and the first time I watched the movie, the second time I analyzed the movie. I've seen LA Confidential multiple times. So, and they both have the draw. They both have those moments when I'm like, that was so good, and I'll do that. I want to see that again, kind of thing. So, these are tough. These are strings that are pulling.
I want to just real quick touch on the title of Chinatown, and one of the things that the famous line from the end of the movie. We haven't really talked about that yet. One of the things that Robert Towne does really well in the script is this. Everybody knows the line. Forget it, Jake. It's Chinatown, and there's this kind of this open interpretation. Like, is Chinatown? Is it the corruption? Is it something that's just in the past that you can't change? Is it this culture that you'll never quite understand or be a part of? And what's so cool about Chinatown is that it's all those things. Okay, it's out of your control, and it's corruption, and it's rich people that get what they want and get away with it. And it's so great how all of these roads just kind of lead to that final scene at the end and that final line. And it's because when you look back on the movie, Chinatown doesn't play a huge part in the movie itself. And one of the things Chinatown does so much better than LA Confidential is that there is a whole lot more going on in terms of everything that happened leading up to the movie. LA Confidential, everything's contained in the movie, but Chinatown has just tons of stories that led into it and all of these roads diverging. And so you get this multifaceted explanation about what Chinatown is and what it's a metaphor for, and it all comes together and peaks right at the end of the movie in this little chef kiss at the end, and it's just delivered perfectly, and it's so satisfying and frustrating, and when you're watching it too, there's lots of Asian actors that are just kind of sprinkled throughout the movie, just kind of, peeking over your shoulder and kind of reminding you that there's this whole kind of Chinatown thing that you're not going to get away from. They're always there, and you're not going to. This isn't something that you can just rise above. But J.J. Gitt, he does it anyway, and it is masterful writing. And I know I voted for Chinatown for best screenplay because a better screenplay than LA Confidential, because I think it is. And that's one of the huge reasons for it. And as far as like a really well-told story, but then also a very deep story that expands beyond the 2 hours and 20 minutes that they tell it, I think Chinatown is just, heads and shoulders above LA Confidential, as much as I love LA Confidential, and I do.
You can't convince me, Tom. Don't stop trying to sway us other judges.
Here's the other thing. I'll tell you right now. I will watch LA Confidential 2-3 times more than Chinatown between now and the day I die. I will, because LA Confidential is more entertaining. It's easier to watch. The subject matter is difficult in LA Confidential, but not uncomfortable. You don't kind of squirm in your seat like you do with Chinatown, especially because there's the daddy-daughter teenage girl getting pregnant thing, and then you've got all this shit with Roman Polanski, and it's hard. It's really hard to watch, knowing what was going on at the same time, leading up to the years leading up to Chinatown. So, but man, is it a good movie? Just a good movie.
Is LA Confidential also more on the nose of racial profiling and things that are currently still happening today that perhaps we relate to? Boy, did I just get deep? Wow, sorry.
But how about that though? Isn't it? Isn't that something that it's like, oh man, look how times have changed, but have they?
Yeah.
It's
right.
I thought that was fascinating. Again, other perspectives as you watch it again and where you are in life, it definitely changes your look and views of movies and people and such. So,
yeah. And it is interesting in LA Confidential how, just how women and minorities and gays were marginalized, and
Yep.
Hollywood was really driven by white men, and still is to this day. But they're still making strides, and they're making those things. They're trying, they're making an effort to do better with those things. But I am in no place to be the judge of where that progress has gotten us. I'm like the last person.
Was it ironic to have Kevin Spacey have that weird connection with the gay actor who ends up getting his throat slit, and then later comes out finding out that Kevin Spacey himself was gay, and that it was just, I was like, whoa, I didn't even think about this when I saw this the first time, kind of thing,
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't even, we didn't know. But
right.
I think the thing with Kevin Spacey, I think the reason LA Confidential may get past this, whereas like American Beauty, I don't think will ever be as acclaimed as it was when it came out, is that
Agreed.
It's American Beauty was Kevin Spacey's movie. I mean, it was him, top to bottom. I mean, it was all him. LA Confidential, he's 6th, 7th billing on it.
Right.
And so it's as great as he is, I think there's a lot more movie than just Kevin Spacey and LA Confidential.
He's one small part of the other 86 speaking parts.
Right. Like stuff like American Beauty and House of Cards, that stuff is going to suffer forever. And it's too bad because they are great works of art, but he has done a huge disservice to his legacy, I think.
Agreed.
Jinx.
Gabe?
Sorry, Gabe, you want to say anything?
Yeah.
Gabe, you ignorant slut.
It's okay. I don't know that I have a heck of a lot to add in the overall category. I was, you guys have covered a lot of it. Again, Mike said it came down to rewatchability, but I think for me, it's like, well, that's a tough one on this too, because I would watch either one again with little hesitation. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know that I actually have a lot to add, so I think we can maybe move on to votes.
Oh my gosh. All right, then. Let's get down to it.
We're just done. Let's just move on.
Unlike LA Confidential, no one has anything to say at this point. So we will. That movie's pretty talky, bro. All right, let's move on.
It is a talkie.
Yeah, that's right. We had the Kaiser on the run. Anyways, we are going to start with Andrew.
I will, for a lot of the things that I've talked about, I'm going to go with LA Confidential for overall. Yes,
Okay.
that I am.
Thank you. Tom.
I gotta go Chinatown.
Gabe.
Yeah, Chinatown.
Chinatown it is. And Mike.
Oh, man. I'm going to go with rewatchability for me, even though I will watch Chinatown again. I'll go with LA Confidential.
Okay. There were many rumors circulating on the set of Chinatown about Faye Dunaway's diva-like behavior during the making of the film. One such was that she refused to flush her own toilet and expected her assistants to do it for her. On another occasion, while filming a scene in a car, Polanski refused to let her urinate so he could finish the scene. She then urinated in a cup and threw it in his face.
Damn.
I'd just like to say
Dude,
some people would pay good money for that.
I was going to say, that's kind of amazing, actually.
LA Confidential's cast includes 3 Oscar winners, Kevin Spacey, Russell Crowe, and Kim Basinger, and 3 Oscar nominees, James Cromwell, David Strathairn, and Danny DeVito. I would just like to personally say David Strathairn is an impossibly handsome man and still looks really good these days.
I did also want to say, do you think James Cromwell could have said the line, "That'll do, pig"? and it would have maybe fit in L.A. Confidential, possibly.
Absolutely. That's a perfect call, Gabe.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just a random thought that I had.
You guys mentioned the music in L.A. Confidential. Jerry Goldsmith, who wrote the score and got an Academy Award nomination, replaced Elmer Bernstein only 10 days before shooting began.
Oh, wow.
Wow. I'm actually more curious why they replaced Bernstein.
I'm not sure.
Do you guys know, like, what's common as far as like having a composer? I mean, is it important for the composer to be there for filming?
No.
No.
No, not necessarily. But I would guess they would have
bring them in near the end if you really needed to. Now, we've heard things, about the soundtrack for Soul, with Trent Reznor and that kind of stuff, that he was highly involved in at early stages so that he could get the score just so. But I'm not sure that, I'm not sure when they're usually on board and how important it is for them to be there during the earliest stages of the process.
I mean, in the movie Soul, the score is practically its own character. I mean, you would need a composer to be involved from the beginning because it's so integral to the story. So I can totally see that for that movie. But
I could see musicals being similar.
Well, that's a little.
That
would be a little.
No, but I mean, I guess but I also can see it in the fact of, and maybe LA Confidential or Chinatown is not the best example, but I could also see where there are some composers that they're like, I understand the kind of feeling you want here, but I want to see it. So maybe I get a couple of ideas, or maybe I'll stop by set today and watch some of the scenes and see if anything, maybe it's part of their creative process too.
Yeah,
but it could be. I just don't know what's common.
My guess is they see a rough cut and start working from there.
That would be my guess as well.
Okay. Well, while we let the computerator do some math, let's move on to recommendations. Let's start with Andrew.
No, don't start with me. Why would you start?
Okay, let's start with Gabe.
God, Tom's upset. I can tell.
Okay, let's start.
But you know why
no one's going to take mine,
he's
so
going to be upset. He's going to be upset because he owes somebody another $10.
Oh boy!
Oh Jesus Christ, dude!
Yeah, my recommendation, which may not at first seem related, but it is the new Blade Runner Black Lotus series, which is kind of has a film noir detective kind of feel to it. And the animation, some of the animation is really very interesting. It's kind of fun to watch. Some of the writing is a little rough at times. It's not perfect by any means, but I've enjoyed it quite a bit. And it's not necessarily all that easy to find. I had to actually basically buy it on Amazon. But if you're into Blade Runner like I am, you might be interested in that. So check it out.
All right. Thanks, Gabe. Now we'll move on to Tom.
All right. So my recommendation is I'm going French film noir. And my favorite subgenre is heist movies. I love heist movies so much, and one of the most classic heist movies of all time is the 1955 film Rafifi, about 4 criminals who are trying to perform the most perfect jewel heist. The film features a 32-minute scene without dialogue or music while they are going through the jewel heist. It's tense and it's very exciting. I actually watched it this week. I had it for a long time, and I watched it this week for the first time, and it fit with the film noir crimes that we were doing this month. So I definitely check out Rafifi. It's a blast. It's a lot of fun and really well done. And for a movie that was done on a very limited budget with actors that had very little experience, it's definitely worth checking out if you love heist movies like me.
All right, thanks, Tom. Also, check out the albums of Raffi if you were into that.
Well, see, now when you do that, now people are going to be like, "What was it called?" And like, I think it was called Raffi. Kyle said Raffi.
Raffi.
I didn't know that anyone else had ever seen that movie, Tom.
I have never heard of that movie.
Oh. I found it because I've always I went to what's the 20 best heist movies of all time? What haven't I seen? And every list I went to had this on it. So I was like, I'll grab it off Criterion, and I snatched it up, and it did not disappoint. Oh my gosh! So it was so much fun. It was so much fun.
Heist movies are such a specific and satisfying subgenre.
We watched it in school. That's the only reason I've ever would have ever seen it. So.
Yeah, just masterful editing. Yeah, it's great. Wonderful story.
Okay, let's move on to Mike.
Oh,
I didn't have to go last.
Well, no, I'm going after you, so don't worry.
All right. Well, mine is from 2021. It can be found on Netflix. It's directed by Adam McKay, starring Leonardo DiCaprio, Jennifer Lawrence, and Meryl Streep. It is called Don't Look Up, and it is a wonderfully satisfying satire that after you watch it, you just think, this is so funny, and yet it's not funny because it is so true. Mm-hmm. And it is so well done. I literally was laughing out loud almost the entire time because it's taking a very hard look at what we have become as a society, especially in the United States. And I think it hits the mark. So check out Don't Look Up.
That was my number 2. I'm so glad you said that one.
It captures it hands down.
Yes.
All right. Thank you, Mike. And now we will move on to Andrew.
My recommendation is a modern film noir femme fatale. So it's both. I got 2 genres in mind.
Wow.
I know, right? I know this is going to sound weird, but it has Mary Elizabeth Winstead, who is the femme fatale in this, and then Woody Harrelson. And I know that is going to be you both. Mm-hmm. Everyone's going to be like, "Wait, what?" But it's called Kate, and it is fantastic. It's action packed. It is beautifully shot. It is shot in Japan, and there's scenes in China, and it is bright, and there's lights, and there's music, and it's just crazy, and it's super fast paced, and it is nonstop when you begin, and it is an intense ride, and highly, highly recommended. 2021, but Kate.
Thank you, Andrew. I actually just read about that movie today. I'd never heard about it before. I don't want to spoil anything, but the premise of it sounds really interesting.
Honestly, Mary Elizabeth Winstead is, I would not have pictured her exactly the way that they have her, but she is very well portrayed as a badass. Like, she does a really good job.
I love her, and so does Ewan McGregor.
And James Hong is in that movie too.
For sure, somewhere. Yes, for somewhere.
Yeah, it's the 6th time they've worked together.
I bet there are a lot of people who have worked with James Hong and don't remember they're in a movie with James Hong because he just probably shows up to every set.
Again,
does anybody need anything?
He demolishes the Samuel L. Jackson theory.
Yes. Yes. So aside from recommending James Hong's IMDb page, I am going to recommend another crime film based on a novel like LA Confidential was. Not one by James Ellroy, but one by Elmore Leonard. And that is a 1995 movie called Get Shorty. So Get Shorty is, how do I describe it? One of the few John Travolta movies I still enjoy. It also has Danny DeVito in it, so there's a little connection between these two films. And the always, at least entertaining Gene Hackman. And it's kind of a crime mobster movie. And the main character's name is Chili Palmer. So if you can't get into that kind of stuff, you're probably not going to love it. But I thought it was a lot of fun, and I haven't seen it in years. But when I think of crime movies based on novels, Get Shorty is up there for me.
Yeah, that's a good pick. Great pick.
You know, I was thinking about it earlier, and I was like, which one's good? Is it Get Shorty or is it Be Cool? And I had to do some research, and I remembered, oh, yeah, Be Cool's not any good.
What?
I can't remember now. Maybe it's not Be Cool. I know there's one sequel to one of these movies that's really bad.
Be Cool's not that great. Let's be honest.
Hilarious.
It is. There are hilarious parts, but it's
Twinkle, twinkle, baby. Twinkle, twinkle.
Very nice. Okay, so the results are in, and we have a winner.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? Your winner by decision is Chinatown!
oh wow.
I'm okay with that.
I'm okay
by
with
a
that.
close
It was
margin.
close, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was 9-7.
Ooh, don't get closer.
I
No.
think Gabe's prediction is correct. That he
What's
made at
that?
the beginning. That these two movies are going to be really close, but it doesn't actually speak volumes for the quality of the movies because they're both excellent movies.
I thought it was actually going to be a little bit more lopsided, especially after our first round went unanimous.
No,
I thought
when it swept one way.
yeah. It actually the final score this time may actually represent how actually close these movies are in quality.
Yeah.
Sure.
It seems fitting. There are some times when we watch two movies and you vote for them but wouldn't recommend them to anybody. And then there are times when you watch two movies and you're like, everybody should watch both of these movies. Don't let who wins determine which of these two you watch. So I think that'd be one of these cases. So would you guys say that you would recommend everybody watch Chinatown and LA Confidential?
I would not recommend everyone watch Chinatown. I think there's some people that would be really disturbed by it.
And maybe modern audiences might be a little bored, but it's got a different kind of pacing to it. I think it takes a certain audience.
I would say, what I'd say is watch LA Confidential, and if you liked it, then why don't you kind of see where it got some of those tropes from?
Yeah. That's not a
fair.
bad idea.
That's fair.
So here's LA Confidential, and now we're going to put it at 33 rather than 45. So,
All right.
Sorry, I'm shopping for records while I talk to you guys.
Are there any good noir movies in '78? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know if there is. It's pretty fast.
What about 14, 16, 18, or 20? Sorry, I'm shopping for dildos.
Whoa. What? Wait a minute.
Nothing. Sorry.
You almost made it to the end, Kyle. You almost made it to the end, man.
Almost made it to the end without
Swing and a
mentioning
miss.
dildos. We would appreciate it if you could leave us a review on iTunes or whatever podcasting service you use. It helps us reach new listeners. If you like us, tell your friends. If you hate us, scream it at your enemies. You can contact us at cinesmack@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook. Just search Cinesmack. For February, we take a trip down the time stream as About Time takes on the Time Traveler's Wife. For Andrew, Gabe, Tom, Mike, and myself, thanks for listening. Happy holidays, and go catch a flick.
Wait, happy holidays.
I forgot to remove that from the script. I hope everyone has a wonderful Groundhog Day.
This has been a test of the Southsider Studios podcast system. This was only a test. If this were a true lack of entertainment, your head would explode. Go to iTunes and subscribe to our feed. Just search Southsider Studios.
It is Ryan here, and I have a question for you. What do you do when you win? Like, are you a fist pumper, a woohooer, a hand clapper, a high fiver? If you want to hone in on those winning moves, check out Chumba Casino. Choose from hundreds of social casino-style games for your chance to redeem serious cash prizes. There are new game releases weekly, plus free daily bonuses. So don't wait. Start having the most fun ever at ChumbaCasino.com.
Sponsored by Chumba Casino. No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus. Terms and conditions apply.